Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that plunges into those complex topics, tries to distill just mountains of information and bring you the crucial insights, the things you really need to be truly well-informed. Today we're tackling a subject that, well, it increasingly touches everyone whether they realize it or not. Cybersecurity. Now, when you hear cyber attack, your mind probably conjures, images of shadowy figures targeting massive financial institutions, right? Or maybe government agencies. But what if I told you one of the most talked about cyber incidents recently involved? Well, Krispy Kreme.
Krispy Kreme.
Yes, the donut chain. Beloved Donuts found itself right in the crosshairs, and it really serves as a stark, maybe surprising wake-up call for a lot of people.
It absolutely does. The Krispy Kreme incident, it just dramatically underscores this critical shift we're seeing. The landscape of cyber threats, especially things like ransomware and data breaches, it's just no longer confined to, the usual suspects. High-value data sectors, defense contractors. It shows how this relentless march of digital transformation, even in industries that seem, well, pretty benign, like food service, it dramatically expands an organization's attack surface. Suddenly, almost every business is a potential target for these increasingly sophisticated cybercriminals. It turns everyday companies into these, well, unexpected battlegrounds.
That's such a powerful point, and it's precisely what we're here to unpack today. We'll be navigating the dynamic nature of these threats, the truly unique and frankly unsettling risks posed by something as personal as biometric data, and maybe most importantly, how organizations are or maybe desperately need to be adapting their defenses, moving far beyond just traditional prevention. So our mission for this deep dive: extract those key insights, highlight some surprising fact that might make you think differently, and really provide you with a shortcut to understanding these incredibly complex issues. Our goal is for you to walk away not just well-informed, but, genuinely resilient in this digital age.
Resilience. Yeah, that's exactly the key word. The threat is just so pervasive, it's constantly morphing, and honestly, incredibly creative. And speaking of resilience and robust defense, we really want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Stonefly. They are a recognized leader in enterprise storage, backup and disaster recovery, AI storage, and just comprehensive cloud solutions. If you're looking for that ironclad, secure, ransomware-proof storage, Stonefly offers state-of-the-art air-gapped and immutable storage solutions.
Which is exactly what you need.
Exactly. These are absolutely critical components in any truly robust cybersecurity strategy. Think of them as that unbreachable last line of defense. We really encourage you to contact them at sales@stonefly.com. That's sales@stonefly.com to schedule a demo. Their solutions are designed to directly address the very problems we'll be digging into today.
All right, then, let's dig into the modern cyber threat landscape. Starting with ransomware, there's been a bit of chatter, maybe a perception out there that ransomware attacks have, stabilized, or maybe even tapered off a bit in 2024. But when you look closely at the data, the reality is, well, it's far more nuanced and, frankly, a bit unsettling. While some metrics might suggest a slight leveling off, ransomware unequivocally remains the most costly and disruptive type of cyber attack organizations face today, period.
That's such a crucial distinction, and it often gets missed in the headlines, right?
Yeah.
If we look at the raw numbers, the frequency of ransomware claims actually saw a modest decrease, about 7% year over year.
Okay, 7%.
So you might think, great, fewer attacks. But here's the catch. The severity of those attacks, meaning their financial impact, the operational disruption they caused, that remained remarkably stable.
Wow.
It tells us that even if fewer organizations are getting hit, the ones that are, they're being hit hard, they're still incredibly impactful, and the damage inflicted is, well, it's still devastating.
And drilling down into the ransom demands themselves, we saw an interesting trend in 2024. Demands decreased by, 22% year over year, settling at an average of about $1.1 million. And in the latter half of 2024, the average even dipped below $1 million for the first time in over 2 years. On the surface, that sounds like a positive development, doesn't it? Maybe a sign defenders are getting better or the illicit market is shifting.
Well, it might offer a fleeting sense of relief, sure. But it would be a mistake, I think, to interpret those lower average demands as some definitive sign the threat is receding, because the grim reality for 2025 is already signaling a significant resurgence.
Oh, right.
Yeah, March of this year. Actually held the highest volume of public ransomware cases ever recorded.
Ever.
So while 2024 might have seen some moderation in average demands and claim frequency, it really looks like cybercriminals used that period to, regroup, refine their tactics. They are clearly back with a vengeance, adapting their approaches and continuing to pose this existential risk to countless organizations. This isn't a problem that's going away. It's just constantly evolving.
And here's where it gets really interesting and maybe quite surprising for many people listening. When we examine the majority of cyber insurance claims in 2024, a staggering 60% of them didn't originate from direct ransomware infections at all.
60%. Where did they come from then?
Business email compromise, BEC, and funds transfer fraud, FTF.
The email scams.
Exactly. This completely shifts the narrative, doesn't it? From complex technical exploits to something far more insidious, basically human manipulation.
What's truly fascinating about that statistic, though, is the high conversion rate. From BEC events to FTF, nearly 29% of those business email compromise incidents ultimately resulted in the direct loss of funds through transfer fraud.
Almost a third.
Yeah, it highlights just how incredibly effective these social engineering tactics still are for cybercriminals. They don't necessarily need sophisticated malware initially. They gain access through clever email deception, right? Mimicking legitimate contacts, invoices. Then they leverage that access to manipulate financial transactions. It's really a testament to the power of, well, human vulnerabilities.
And the financial fallout from these email-based attacks, it's quite varied. BEC claims severity actually increased by 23% year over year.
Increased?
Yeah, indicating maybe the initial compromises are becoming more damaging or perhaps harder to detect quickly. But on a more positive note, FTF claims severity, that's the actual money lost from the fraudulent transfers, that decreased by 46% year over year, especially after hitting an all-time high in 2023.
That divergence is interesting. So the initial email compromise gets worse, but the actual money transfer gets stopped more often. Why would that be?
Good question.
Well, one hypothesis is that while the initial BEC attacks are maybe getting more sophisticated, harder to prevent, organizations are improving at detecting and responding to the funds transfer itself.
Okay. Better controls, maybe?
Could be. Better internal controls, more stringent verification processes for financial transactions, maybe quicker reporting, which allows for faster intervention, recovering funds. Even if the initial email compromise was successful, it kind of speaks to this growing understanding that layered defenses are crucial, right? Prevention is just one part of the battle.
That makes sense. Okay, speaking of ransomware itself, while the overall frequency might have had that dip we mentioned, some variants are still incredibly active and dangerous. Akira ransomware, for example, that was the most prolific variant for a particular group of policyholders in 2024. It accounted for a notable 13% of all their ransomware claims.
Akira. Yeah, that's a name that should definitely be on everyone's radar.
And it's fascinating to contrast Akira with, say, Black Basta. While Akira was prolific in its volume of attacks, Black Vesta only accounted for about 3% of claims for that group, but it had the highest average demand, a staggering $4 million.
$4 million average demand. Wow.
Yeah. It starkly demonstrates that attack volume doesn't always equate to the highest cost for victims. Different groups, different strategies, different targets leads to wildly varying financial impacts. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all threat.
No, absolutely not. And on the negotiation front, there's actually a genuine glimmer of hope in the data. It shows that 44% of policyholders who experienced a ransomware attack opted to pay the ransom, which sounds high, but here's the critical detail. Incident response teams, often those third-party experts, they were able to negotiate those payments down by an average of 60%.
60% negotiation, that's huge. Imagine saving over half of a multi-million-dollar demand. It's massive. It truly emphasizes the critical role of expert incident response professional negotiation services. It's not just about the technical recovery, it's strategic financial mitigation too. And the success of recovery efforts is also quite notable. A remarkable $31 million was clawed back for policyholders overall, with an average recovery of $278,000 per incident.
That's significant money back in pockets.
Absolutely. And there's even a strong financial incentive built into some policies to report funds transfer fraud within 72 hours, because doing that significantly increases the likelihood of recovering stolen funds. This whole picture just stresses the paramount importance of rapid detection, immediate reporting, and crucially, engaging the right experts.
Okay, so with that broader landscape in mind, let's zero in on a particularly aggressive and, frankly, elusive player shaping these trends, the Play ransomware group, also known as PlayCrypt. This isn't some fly-by-night operation that just popped up. They first emerged, June 2022? And they've been incredibly active and destructive ever since, carving out a significant niche. Yeah, what's truly striking about Play is their broad and, indiscriminate impact. Since June 2022, they've affected an astonishingly wide range of businesses and critical infrastructure across North America, South America, Europe. They're not specializing in just one sector. Their net is cast really wide, targeting anything from government entities to private enterprise, which just highlights their opportunistic yet highly capable nature.
And they've made headlines with some truly significant high-profile incidents, haven't they?
Oh yeah, back in 2022, they hit the Argentine judiciary of Cordoba, a major attack disrupting critical legal systems. Then, 2023, they launched this wave of coordinated attacks on Switzerland, hitting sensitive organizations like the newspaper Neue Zürcher Zeitung.
The newspaper attack, didn't that involve extracting citizen data?
It did, and this is deeply concerning. Over 400,000 addresses of Swiss citizens living abroad who were subscribers were extracted. Imagine the implications there. Privacy, potential for further exploitation. Just massive.
And they didn't stop there in Switzerland, did they?
No. That same month, a Valais community, a local government, fell victim, again showing their reach into infrastructure. And even more concerning, May and June of 2023, they executed this massive attack on a Swiss Federal Administration IT service provider. They managed to steal highly confidential financial and tax data.
Federal-level data.
Yeah, this whole sequence dramatically illustrates their capability to target and compromise highly sensitive, national-level, government-related entities, not just private businesses. It points to a very sophisticated, well-resourced operation.
And here's a detail that kind of provides a window into their operational security, maybe their philosophy. Play is considered a closed group.
A closed group. What does that mean in this context?
Well, according to a statement found on their own data leak website, this structure is designed to, quote, guarantee the secrecy of deals.
Huh. That's a bold claim, isn't it?
It really is. It highlights their deliberate strategy for discretion, for stealth, which undoubtedly makes them even more elusive and challenging for law enforcement and researchers to track down and dismantle. They want to operate under the radar, even while causing just massive disruption.
Their naming convention is also quite distinctive, almost like a minimalistic dark brand. They consistently append play as the file extension to all encrypted files. It's a clear signature of their work.
Just play.
Yep. And their ransom notes. Incredibly succinct, usually containing only the single word play and an email address for contact. This simplicity in their public-facing elements, it really belies the sophisticated tactics they employ behind the scenes. It's stark, almost taunting.
And it's clear they are not slowing down. As recently as January 2025, FBI investigations had identified approximately 900 affected entities globally, impacted by play.
900, that's a staggering number. Emphasizes their reach, their persistence.
And what's more, there's growing suspicion of Russian links. Because of similar encryption techniques, similar operational methods used by other notoriously aggressive groups like Hive and Nokoyawa.
Okay, so this leads us to the crucial question.
Yeah.
How exactly do they operate? How do they pull this off? The Einer AT&CK framework gives us a good language for this, right? Describing attacker behaviors.
Exactly. Their TTP's tactics, techniques, and procedures reveal this highly organized, almost industrialized approach. Their primary method, the infamous double extortion model.
Double extortion, tracked as T1657 in MITRE ANDR.
So they don't just encrypt your systems and demand ransom to unlock like old-school ransomware.
Right. They first meticulously exfiltrate your sensitive data, basically steal it. Then they encrypt your system, so the threat becomes twofold. Either you pay to decrypt your files, or they'll publish your stolen data on their dedicated Tor network leak site to compel payment.
It's an incredibly effective psychological pressure tactic, isn't it? And financial pressure, too, hitting victims on multiple fronts. Absolutely. So how do they get in? Initial access, that's TA0001 in ITRE. Play uses several primary vectors here. They've been observed abusing valid accounts, often accounts likely purchased on dark web marketplaces. That's T1078.
So they're buying their way in sometimes, not always needing a complex zero-day breach.
Exactly. It's straightforward, effective, especially if credentials are weak or compromised elsewhere, bypasses perimeter defenses.
And they are also incredibly adept at exploiting public-facing applications. PL0190. Specifically, they've repeatedly targeted known critical vulnerabilities in FortiOS, these like CVE 2018-13379, CVE 2020-13812.
Those Fortinet ones, yeah. And Microsoft Exchange vulnerabilities, too, notably those involved in the proxy not shell exploit chain, like CVE 2022-41040, CVE 2022-41082.
Right. highly critical systems. If they're left unpatched, they offer this wide-open, high-value door right into an organization's network. Just a stark reminder of the importance of prompt patching.
Definitely. They also regularly leverage external-facing services like Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP, and Virtual Private Networks, VPNs. That falls under TLO 133 for initial access.
Common pathways into corporate networks. If they're not properly secured with strong authentication, they become prime targets.
And there was a more recent development, too, wasn't there? June 2025.
It was noted that play operators, or maybe initial access brokers affiliating with them, exploited a specific vulnerability, CVE 2024-57727. It's in the Simple Help Remote Monitoring and Management Tool, RMM.
Ah, RMM tools, always a target.
Exactly. This allowed them remote code execution, T1059.001, at many U.S.-based entities as recently as January 2025. This constant pursuit of new, unpatched vulnerabilities just demonstrates their agility, their resourcefulness.
Okay, so once they're inside, what's next? Discovery and defense evasion.
Right. Under TA0007 for discovery, they use tools like AdFind to run Active Directory queries, methodically map out the network structure, identify potential high-value targets. What's interesting is their use of a custom info stealer called Grixpa, specifically version 1.1.3.0.
Grixpa, what does that do?
Well, it doesn't just enumerate network information, T016. It also actively scans for antivirus software, T1518.001. So they're not just exploring, they're actively assessing the defenses they need to overcome, planning their next move.
That's methodical, and this extends into defense evasion too, right? TA0005.
Briefly, they use common, often legitimate-looking tools like GMER, IOBIT, PowerTool to disable antivirus software. That's T1562.001.
Like a burglar disabling the alarm system.
Precisely, blinding the network's automated defenses. They also make sure to diligently remove log files, T10700001, obscuring their tracks, making forensic investigations significantly harder for the security teams later. Researchers have even seen them using PowerShell scripts specifically to target and disable Microsoft Defender.
And this is where detection becomes that critical cat and mouse game. Fortunately, the cybersecurity community fights back, right? There are countermeasures.
Yes, thankfully. YIRA and Suricata rules exist to detect Play's custom tools, like Grixpa. These rules can identify specific hexadecimal strings, text strings associated with the malware, including scanning common web history paths for telltale signs. It's a constant arms race, ingenuity versus dedication.
Absolutely. Okay, so they've evaded defenses, now lateral movement and execution, spreading through the network. TA000.
For that, they rely heavily on sophisticated command and control, or C2 applications. Things like Cobalt Strike, System BC.
Powerful tools, legitimate pen testing tools, but dangerous in the wrong hands.
Exactly. They allow them to maintain persistent access, orchestrate complex activities across the network, full remote control, essentially. They also use tools like PSExec for lateral movement, executing files, commands across multiple machines once they have that foothold.
And they're incredibly aggressive about getting higher privileges, aren't they? Moving towards total control.
Oh, yes. For credential access, TA0006, they search relentlessly for unsecured credentials, T1552, often just sitting in plain text files, configuration settings. Once they find these, they use well-known credential dumpers like Mimikatz to extract passwords, hashes from memory, aiming to gain domain administrator access, T1003.
The keys to the kingdom.
That's exactly it, granting them unhindered access to virtually all systems. And to further enumerate vulnerabilities, find additional paths for privilege escalation, they've been observed using WinPs, Windows Privilege Escalation Awesome scripts. That's under T1059. Once they get those coveted elevated privileges, then they distribute their ransomware executables, T517, often via group policy objects, GPOs, T1484.001.
GPOs. That's a highly effective, stealthy way to deploy malware across an entire domain, isn't it? Ensures widespread infection quickly, efficiently.
Very efficient. Now, for the impact phase, exfiltration and encryption, TA01 and TA0000 respectively. The author began by compressing the compromised data, T15600000. Using common tools like WinRAR, they frequently split the compressed data into smaller segments before they exfiltrate it, presumably to make transfer easier, less detectable.
Sneaky. And how do they get the data out?
For that data transfer, T1048, they typically use WinSCP, a legitimate file transfer client, to move the stolen data from the compromised network to their own actor-controlled accounts, often cloud storage, other secure servers. Following this data exfiltration, then they proceed with the encryption, T1486, employing a robust, AES-RSA hybrid encryption method. But what's particularly noteworthy here, and a really clever evasion tactic, is their use of intermittent encryption.
Internet encryption. Wait, what's that? How does that work, and why is it clever? That sounds like it would be harder to detect.
It is. It's insidious because it's designed to bypass some traditional security tools that might flag full file encryption as malicious activity. Imagine a book where only every other page has text. You can still tell it's a book, right? But extracting the full story, truly understanding the content, becomes incredibly difficult without the key to unlock those missing pieces.
Yeah, I see.
By only encrypting parts of files, specifically chunks of 0 by 100,000 bytes, it can make it harder for victims to immediately realize the full extent of the damage. It buys the attackers more time before the full scale of the compromise is understood. And crucially, they skip system files, which helps ensure the core OS remains somewhat functional, likely just enough to allow the ransom note to be displayed to the victim.
And of course, the signature move. A play extension appended to all encrypted files, making it crystal clear who's responsible. The ransom note itself, usually a readme.txt file, placed in C users' public music for Windows systems. But here is a truly challenging aspect for defenders, something that really speaks to their adaptive nature. The play ransomware binary itself. It's actually recompiled for every single attack.
Every single one.
Yep. This results in unique hashes for each deployment, making it incredibly difficult for traditional anti-malware, antivirus programs that rely on signature-based detection to identify and block it. That's T1027. They are literally custom building the malware for each victim, ensuring it's a fresh challenge every single time.
And it's not just Windows environments they target, is it? They've developed a specific variant for ESXi.
Right, ESXi, VMware's enterprise hypervisor, the foundation for virtual server environments in so many large organizations.
Exactly. And this variant is designed to directly interact with that virtual machine infrastructure, making it incredibly disruptive.
So it's not just encrypting files on a server, it's targeting the very heart of the virtualized environment itself.
Precisely. It invokes specific ESXi shell commands to power off all running virtual machines. It lists machine names. It even sets the welcome message of the ESXi interface itself to their campaign-specific ransom note. Then it proceeds to encrypt specific VM-related files, like .vmdk, the virtual disks, .vmsem metadata, .vmx configuration files, using robust AES-256 encryption. The ransom note, play-way-readme.txt, is strategically left in the root directory and in VMSS volumes, right where the virtual machines reside.
And just like the Windows variant, this ESXi version is also recompiled for each campaign, keeping its evasion capabilities high. It even supports command line arguments, likely for development, debugging, allowing them to exempt specific VMs or target just one file for testing. That level of customization, that environmental awareness, it's truly alarming, underscores their sophistication.
Indeed. And their aggressive follow-up tactics are also a key part of their strategy, really ratcheting up the pressure. Victims are initially told to contact them via email addresses, usually ending in at gms.de or at web.de. But it doesn't stop there. Some victims have reported actually receiving phone calls from these threat actors, with the calls routed to various organizational numbers like help desks.
Phone calls.
Seriously. During these calls, they directly threaten the public release of the stolen data if the ransom isn't paid, adding this significant layer of psychological pressure on top of the financial extortion. Is a very personal, very intimidating approach.
Wow. This all brings us back full circle almost to our surprising starting point, the Krispy Kreme cyber attack. So November 29, 2024, Krispy Kreme detected unauthorized activity within a portion of its IT systems. The immediate impact was very tangible for customers, right? They had to temporarily suspend online ordering in parts of the US, causing what the company called operational disruptions. Imagine trying to get your morning coffee, your dozen donuts, systems down.
Yeah, the company's response was swift and pretty textbook for a major incident like this. They immediately engaged external cybersecurity experts to investigate the breach, implement containment measures, try to stop the spread. Crucially, they also notified federal law enforcement, bringing in the authorities. This rapid action is absolutely crucial in managing the fallout, both technically and legally.
And as we've discussed, the notorious Play Ransomware Group claimed responsibility for this attack in December 2024. They alleged that they stole a whopping 184 gigabytes of sensitive business and personal data.
184 gigs. That's a lot of data.
It is. And this data was then made public on their Tor-based leak site later that month, which is a strong indicator that Krispy Kreme likely refused to pay the ransom demand. Releasing the data is that ultimate escalation in the double extortion model.
And what's particularly concerning here from a data privacy perspective is just the sheer breadth and sensitivity of the data compromised. While the specifics varied by individual, it was basically a treasure trove for identity theft for further malicious activity. It included names, social security numbers, dates of birth, driver's license or state ID numbers.
The usual suspects.
Right, but also financial account information, including usernames and passwords, credit or debit card info with security codes, passport numbers, digital signatures, email addresses and passwords, and then it gets even more personal, biometric data, USCIS or alien registration numbers, U.S. military ID numbers, medical or health information, health insurance information.
Just everything. Imagine the profound impact if your entire digital identity, even your health history, were exposed like that.
It's devastating. The primary victims were current and former Krispy Kreme employees and their families. The company stated the vast majority were employees. The Texas Attorney General was notified that nearly 7,000 Texans alone were affected, which gives you a sense of the scale of human impact across the country.
And the operational and financial consequences for Krispy Kreme, they were substantial and immediate. Digital sales, as you might expect, represent a significant portion of their business, about 15.5% of total revenue. So disrupting online ordering had a direct material impact on their bottom line.
How much did they report?
They reported an $11 million hit in lost online sales revenue and an additional $3 million in remediation expenses for fiscal 2024. With those costs expected to increase into 2025 as the full remediation efforts continue.
Ouch. $14 million and counting.
Yeah. And their stock price even saw a short-term dip about 2% right after the news broke. However, the company did communicate swiftly that, thanks to their cyber insurance coverage and ongoing remediation efforts, they didn't anticipate a long-term material impact on their core business fundamentals.
Which highlights that often underestimated value of having comprehensive cyber insurance, right, as a crucial layer of financial protection.
Absolutely. This case really exposed some key vulnerabilities that are relevant for pretty much any industry going through rapid digital transformation. The attackers exploited weaknesses in Krispy Kreme's quickly deployed digital platforms, things like their mobile ordering app, cloud-based point-of-sale systems.
It really serves as a significant wake-up call, doesn't it? That digital transformation, while absolutely essential for modern competitiveness, can unfortunately outpace cybersecurity defenses, significantly increasing the attack surface for criminals if it's not managed meticulously.
And it makes you wonder why the food industry, of all places, why is it becoming such a prime target? It's not just about selling donuts, clearly.
Not at all. There are several compelling reasons, actually. During the initial phases of the COVID pandemic, many food service businesses, Krispy Kreme included, really latched onto rapid digital transformation as a means of survival. Think online ordering, contactless payment, delivery apps.
Right, everyone shifted online fast.
Yeah, exactly. And in that rush, security gaps were often inadvertently created. Point-of-sale systems, loyalty apps, online delivery platforms, they all handle vast amounts of sensitive payment data, makes them attractive targets. Plus, the food industry often has these complex supply chains, franchise models, which can create sprawling, interconnected, and often unevenly secured attack surfaces.
And for the cybercriminals, the return on investment, the ROI, it's incredibly clear, isn't it?
Absolutely. Imagine disrupting operations in an industry with perishable goods, time-sensitive delivery. Companies face immense pressure to pay ransoms quickly, to avoid major operational disruption, product spoilage, severe reputational damage. The average retail sector data breach already costs around $2.9 million. And for a globally recognized, publicly traded brand like Krispy Kreme, that figure is likely even higher due to brand damage, regulatory scrutiny.
So, in response to the breach, Krispy Kreme has been proactive, offering credit monitoring, identity protection services at no cost to affected individuals. They've emphasized that while no direct evidence of misuse of the data has been found yet, they are advising extreme vigilance. Given that the data was publicly available on the hacker's leak site for a period.
Right, you have to assume the worst at that point.
Exactly. And they are continuing their relentless efforts to restore full online ordering, secure their systems, enhance their overall cybersecurity measures to prevent future incidents.
This incident is just such a stark reminder. Even seemingly unlikely targets are now fair game in the cyber world, especially as companies embrace digital transformation without adequately bolstering their security posture alongside it. It's really a universal threat now.
Indeed. And that brings us to a particularly sensitive type of data mentioned in the Krispy Kreme breach, biometric data.
Yes, biometrics. The market for biometric data systems is absolutely booming, expected to more than double, from $33 billion in 2019 to an estimated $65.3 billion by 2024.
That's explosive growth. What's driving this rapid adoption? Why biometrics everywhere now?
Several key factors, really. It's the increasing incorporation into consumer devices, right? Smartphones, smart home devices for unlocking, authentication. New government applications are a major driver, too. Enhanced passport verification, border control systems. Enterprises are adopting it for improved data security, access control. We're even seeing its emerging role in the automotive industry. Vehicle access, personalization, the convenience and the perceived security of biometrics are really powerful motivators for this widespread adoption.
And it's not just fingerprints anymore, is it? The types of biometric data being collected are incredibly diverse now and rapidly expanding.
You're absolutely right. Beyond traditional fingerprints, we're talking photo or video analysis for facial recognition, unique physiological traits like hand geometry, even ear recognition.
Yeah, recognition. Wow.
Yeah. Voice recognition is another common one. Signature identification.
Yeah.
Even behavioral biometrics like your typing rhythm, your navigation patterns on devices. It extends to overall patterns in how users engage with technology. Even their unique physical movements, like the nuances in a person's walk.
AKA analysis.
Exactly. And while still nascent, more advanced biometrics like brainwave scanning, even DNA analysis, are being explored for future applications. The common thread is that this data is inherently unique to an individual, which makes it seem like this robust, convenient authentication method.
But here's the crucial distinction, and this is where it becomes far more concerning. Why are biometric data breaches different? Arguably far more damaging than, say, a traditional password breach?
It comes down to one word.
Permanence.
Permanence.
Right. Unlike passwords, which you can simply change if they're leaked, biometric identifiers simply cannot be changed. Your fingerprint is your fingerprint for life. Your unique facial structure is constant. Your iris pattern doesn't change.
This permanence creates a severe, a truly frightening long-term threat. If a breach involving biometric data isn't discovered for weeks, maybe months, hackers could potentially use those stolen biometrics for numerous malicious activities before ever getting caught. Imagine your digital identity being constantly at risk with no ability to reset it.
It's terrifying.
And perhaps even more disturbing is the chilling potential for hackers to not only use, but to identify and track the owners of stolen biometric data, leading to unprecedented, irreversible privacy risks in the physical world, not just the digital one. It fundamentally changes the nature of identity theft.
And there's a real-world example that chillingly illustrates this very reality, isn't there? The Suprema BioStar 2 incident.
Yes, back in 2019, vulnerabilities were discovered and exploited in Suprema's BioStar 2 security platform, allowing infiltration, leading to this massive, highly sensitive data breach.
What was compromised?
The result was unfettered access to over 27.8 million records, including deeply sensitive biometric data like fingerprints and face photos, belonging to security personnel, employees from hundreds of organizations worldwide using that system.
27.8 million records, including fingerprints and photos.
Yeah. This incident serves as a profound aha moment, I think. It highlights that while biometrics offer unique identifiers, seem robust on the surface, they are far from a universal infallible fix. They have their own serious vulnerabilities. And if compromised, the implications are just far more profound, permanent, and long-lasting than traditional credential theft. It's a completely different level of exposure.
So the immediate costs of a cyber attack or a data breach, the investigation, containment, system restoration, those are really just the tip of the iceberg, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. The tip of a very large, very expensive iceberg.
Data breaches lead to significant, far-reaching legal and financial consequences that extend far beyond those initial remediation efforts.
That's precisely right. Companies can face truly hefty fines and penalties from various regulatory bodies around the globe. Yeah. Major regulations like IPPA in the U.S. healthcare space, the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, across Europe, the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, they all empower authorities to issue substantial fines for data mishandling, negligence, or even just delayed disclosure.
And GDPR, for example, is particularly stringent, isn't it? And widely impactful.
Extremely. It applies across all EU member states, but it also has this extraterritorial reach, meaning it can apply to any organization handling data of EU citizens, regardless of where the organization is located. It requires data processing with absolute integrity, a clear legal basis, utmost respect for individual rights, and crucially, it mandates reporting personal data breaches within a very tight 72-hour window from discovery.
72 hours, that's fast.
Very fast. And failure to comply can result in truly massive fines. Up to 4% of a company's global annual sales, or 20 million, whichever figure is higher.
Yeah.
That is a colossal financial incentive for companies to get their data protection right.
And it's not just Europe. Australia has its own rules, too.
Right. Australia's Privacy Act of 1988 mandates reporting eligible data breaches, defined as unauthorized access, disclosure, or loss of data that a reasonable person would believe could cause serious harm. They have to report to both the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, OAIC, and to all affected individuals. And organizations have a maximum of 30 days to assess if a breach is eligible. These comprehensive regulations across different continents just vividly demonstrate this strong global trend towards holding companies increasingly accountable for safeguarding personal data. The days of simply hoping breaches wouldn't get noticed are long, long gone.
And beyond the regulatory fines, there are the lawsuits. Class action lawsuits and settlements are now, as the outline said, a virtually regular fixture in corporate risk management.
Oh, yeah. In 2024, settlements from class actions across various industries, not just tech, surpassed an astounding $40 billion for the third consecutive year.
$40 billion.
Yeah. And it's clear that data breaches are playing a massive, ever-growing role in pushing that number into the stratosphere.
We've seen some truly staggering examples that highlight this trend, haven't we? Meta, for instance.
Right. Meta faced that record-breaking $1.4 billion settlement with Texas regulators, specifically for unlawfully collecting biometric data, directly violating state privacy laws. It sends this unambiguous message: mismanaging sensitive user data. It's no longer just an IT problem. It's a profound legal and financial nightmare for corporations.
And it's not just the tech giants either. Consider Lehigh Valley Health Network.
The healthcare breach. They had to pay a $65 million settlement after a ransomware attack exposed patients' social security numbers, extensive medical records, even private photos. This is the largest healthcare ransomware breach settlement per patient in history, highlighting the severe consequences when healthcare providers fail to protect sensitive medical data. The human cost, the legal cost, just immense.
And another notable, very recent case, 23andMe, the genetic testing company.
Yeah, they agreed to a $30 million settlement. Due to poor security control specifically, the critical lack of multi-factor authentication that allowed cybercriminals to access sensitive ancestry and health data. It underscores that even seemingly unique, deeply personal data, like your genetic information, is highly vulnerable without robust, fundamental security measures in place.
So it really begs the question, why are data breach lawsuits exploding like this?
Well, it's clearly a confluence of powerful factors, isn't it? More corporate breaches inevitably lead to more lawsuits. Affected customers sue for damages, often through class actions. There's also this palpable, growing public concern about privacy, now strongly backed by tougher regulatory enforcement, increasingly harsher punishments for security failures. The entire legal landscape is just decisively shifting against companies with weak security postures.
And finally, and perhaps most devastatingly in the long term, there's the impact on a company's brand and reputation.
Absolutely. Reduced customer trust, loyalty, those are often the most costly and difficult consequences to recover from. Negative media coverage, widespread customer backlash, a perception of negligence. It can significantly impact future revenue, erode market share, even depress stock value. While companies that take immediate responsibility, notify quickly, make proper restitution, they tend to recover customer trust and company value faster. But the damage can be extensive, and it can linger for years. It's a wound that takes a very long time to heal.
Okay. Given this increasingly hostile, complex, and a costly cyber environment, how do organizations build true cyber resilience? It's clear the paradigm has shifted significantly.
It really has. In the immediate aftermath of a ransomware attack, the priority shifts dramatically. From prevention, because, hey, the attack is already in progress, to rapid containment.
Containment. Stop the bleeding.
Exactly. Once an attack inevitably bypasses initial preventative measures, the critical need is to isolate it swiftly. You need to stop its spread, control the damage from becoming catastrophic. Tools like real-time network monitoring, rapid isolation solutions, they become absolutely critical for minimizing immediate losses, reducing operational downtime. It's about damage control, reducing the blast radius, rather than trying to rewind time.
So the immediate action becomes containment. Swiftly isolating compromised systems, devices, users from the rest of the network. Once contained, the focus shifts to reconnaissance and restoration, using tools like endpoint detection and response, EDR solutions. They offer real-time granular insights into the health of all network endpoints, revealing abnormal activities that could indicate lingering vulnerabilities or ongoing malicious presence.
And Having a meticulously well-drafted business continuity plan, a BCP, complete with clear roles, responsibilities, communication protocols, it's paramount. And this plan isn't just theoretical. It must be practiced, refined. It facilitates a coordinated response, ensures everyone knows their role under pressure, and significantly speeds up the process of system restoration. It's about being prepared for the inevitable, not just hoping it won't happen. It's the difference between chaos and controlled recovery.
Okay, let's dive into the multifaceted cybersecurity framework that organizations need to adopt to build this resilience. First up, and this might sound basic, but it's foundational and often overlooked, prioritizing patching and updates.
Back to basics, but crucial.
Absolutely. Timely patching of operating systems, software, firmware. It's one of the most efficient, cost-effective, and impactful steps an organization can take, especially critical for known exploited vulnerabilities in internet-facing systems. That's CPG 1.E from the Center for Internet Security's controls. And for specific high-risk scenarios, like those Microsoft Exchange servers we talked about, if you truly cannot patch immediately, then disabling Outlook Web Access, OWA, until those updates can be undertaken is an absolute must.
Building on that, multi-factor authentication, MFA, CPG-2H, should be rigorously required for all services to the extent technically possible, particularly vital for webmail access, VPNs, any accounts accessing critical internal systems. MFA adds that crucial, almost impenetrable layer of security beyond just a simple password, significantly increases the effort required for an attacker to compromise an account. Even if they steal credentials, they hit that brick wall without the second factor.
And speaking of passwords, strong password policies are essential. CPG-2C. We're talking adhering to modern NIST standards here. Favor longer passwords, right? Ideally 15 to 64 characters. Store them hashed with unique user salts to prevent rainbow table attacks. Strictly prohibit reuse of old passwords.
And lockouts for failed logins, CPG-2G, to deter brute force attempts.
Right. And interestingly, NIST guidance now strongly favors length and uniqueness over frequent mandatory changes, because forcing frequent changes often leads users to create predictable, easily guessable patterns.
Also, always disable password hints and require administrator credentials to install any software, preventing users from inadvertently installing malicious programs.
Network segmentation, CPG 2.F, is another foundational defense, often likened to creating watertight compartments on a ship, right?
Exactly. It helps prevent ransomware spread by meticulously controlling traffic flow between and access to various subnetworks within your larger infrastructure. Significantly restricts an adversary's lateral movement once they gain that initial foothold. By segmenting, you create smaller, more manageable blast radii. So if one section is compromised, the damage doesn't immediately spread across your entire organization.
And this is precisely where our sponsor, Stonefly, truly shines and offers invaluable protection. They specialize in providing offline and immutable backups, critical practices outlined in CPG-2R and CPG-2K. This means maintaining multiple, physically separate, segmented, secure copies of your data, whether on hard drives, dedicated storage devices, or in isolated cloud environments.
And crucially, these backups must be encrypted for confidentiality and, most importantly, immutable.
Immutable, that's the key.
It means they absolutely cannot be altered, overwritten, or deleted by any means, even by sophisticated ransomware. This ensures your entire data infrastructure is recoverable no matter what kind of attack you face, providing that ultimate air-gapped lifeline.
Critical. Okay, what else? Continuous monitoring and detection. CPG 1E.
Yeah, key to truly robust resilience. Organizations should deploy sophisticated network monitoring tools to log, report all network traffic, paying particular attention to anomalous patterns, lateral movement within the network. EDR tools, endpoint detection and response solutions are particularly useful here. They provide deep visibility into endpoint health, can detect subtle, abnormal network connections, processes on each individual host, acting as early warning systems.
Traffic filtering is also incredibly important, actively preventing connections from unknown or untrusted origins from accessing remote internal services. Directly counters threat actors trying to connect back to remote access services they've established for persistence, cuts off their communication channels.
Right, and of course, installing, regularly updating, enabling real-time detection for antivirus software on all hosts. It remains a fundamental baseline security measure, even against rapidly changing threats.
Regular account review and auditing is vital too. CPG 1.A, 2.0, 2.E, reviewing domain controllers, servers, workstations, Active Directories for any new or unrecognized accounts. Vigilance here can quickly spot backdoor accounts or unauthorized access.
And this goes hand in hand with rigorously auditing administrative privileges. Strictly implementing the principle of least privilege, ensuring users and systems only have the minimum access necessary for their specific role or function, significantly limits the damage an attacker can inflict, even if they compromise a single account.
And on the network side, simply disabling unused ports, CPG2.v, can close off numerous potential entry points that attackers constantly scan for. Simple, but effective.
Email security, CPG2M, also crucial. Effective tactics include implementing email banners for external emails, warning users of potential phishing, and disabling hyperlinks in received emails to reduce those click-based risks.
More advanced strategies, time-based access, just-in-time JIT access.
Yeah, JIT is great. It automatically disables administrative accounts when they are not in direct use, requiring users to actively request temporary privileged access for specific approved tasks. Helps enforce least privilege dynamically, on demand, dramatically reduces the window of opportunity for attackers to exploit standing admin credentials. Additionally, disabling command line and scripting activities and permissions for regular users, CPG2D, can significantly hinder threat actors' ability to run malicious tools for privilege escalation and lateral movement.
All of this ties into even more advanced defense strategies, particularly leveraging the power of artificial intelligence and behavior analysis.
Right. Behavior analysis tools, often powered by AI, machine learning algorithms, they constantly compare real-time data streams to established operational benchmarks. Allows them to identify subtle anomalies.
Like what kinds of anomalies?
Things like unusual login times, atypical data downloads, access patterns from unexpected locations. By quickly flagging these deviations, they can isolate potential threats, prevent small intrusions from escalating into large-scale attacks.
And AI-driven threat detection takes this a significant step further, doesn't it?
It does. It can analyze massive volumes of security data in real time, far beyond human capacity, to spot complex anomalies, adapt to emerging threat patterns as they develop. This capability significantly reduces that critical window of opportunity for criminals by enabling much faster, more accurate threat identification and response. It's about moving from reactive defense to predictive, proactive security.
But beyond all the sophisticated technology, all the rigorous policies, the human element is absolutely paramount, and often the weakest link if ignored.
Oh, definitely. Employee training is just non-negotiable. Organizations must equip their staff to recognize phishing attempts, social engineering tactics, other common cyber threats. Through regular, targeted, engaging training sessions, data protection needs to be understood as a company-wide priority, because well-informed employees are often the first and most crucial line of defense.
And critically, organizations must have a clear, well-rehearsed incident response plan.
Yes. This plan should designate specific response schemes, outline precise procedures for containment, detailed communication protocols for notification within those legal timeframes we talked about. Regularly practicing and updating this plan ensures that when an incident inevitably occurs, everyone knows their role, can act quickly, manage the crisis effectively, systematically, minimizing panic, maximizing recovery speed.
Regulatory compliance and payment security are also non-negotiable, especially for industries handling sensitive financial data, like Krispy Kreme was. Adhering strictly to standards like PCI DSS for payment data, deploying strong encryption, tokenization for sensitive info, continuous monitoring, absolutely vital. Not only safeguards sensitive information, but also builds and maintains that invaluable customer trust.
And finally, regular security audits and rigorous penetration testing are essential. These proactive assessments rigorously test system resilience against diverse, evolving attack vectors. They simulate real-world attacks, allowing organizations to uncover and address weaknesses before they can be exploited by actual adversaries. Organizations should continually test their security programs at scale, in production environments, against recognized techniques like those in the IMITRE ATT&CK framework, to ensure their defenses are truly robust and adaptive.
Wow. What an incredible deep dive today. We've covered a tremendous amount. From the dynamic, evolving nature of cyber threats, the surprising prevalence of email-based fraud, the specific dangers posed by sophisticated ransomware groups like Play, and that unique, truly permanent risk associated with biometric data breaches. And then we capped it all off exploring that multi-layered proactive approach that's absolutely required for true cyber resilience in this landscape. It's clearer than ever that simply preventing attacks is no longer enough, is it?
Not even close. Organizations must be prepared to detect, contain, recover, and constantly adapt.
Indeed. The landscape is just not static. It's this constantly shifting battlefield.
Yeah, and what we've discussed today profoundly underscores the critical need for continuous vigilance ongoing investment in robust security frameworks, and really a cultural shift towards prioritizing cybersecurity at every single level. It's
Yeah.
no longer just about building an impenetrable wall, it's about building a nimble fortress, one that can withstand a hit, recover swiftly, and learn from every encounter to become even stronger.
So, as you, our listener, reflect on all of this, consider this provocative thought. Given how sophisticated these cyber threats have become and how incredibly valuable our personal data, even our unique, unchangeable biometric identifiers have now become, how much of our digital security should we truly outsource to companies and technology? And how much personal responsibility do we each bear in navigating and securing ourselves in this rapidly evolving digital landscape?
That's a profound question for our digital age, a really good one to chew on. And as you ponder that, remember that for organizations looking to build that resilient fortress, strengthen their defenses against these very threats we've discussed today. Stonefly offers secure, ransomware-proof storage solutions. This includes their critical air-gapped and immutable storage designed to be that unbreachable last line of defense we mentioned. You can reach them at sales@stonefly.com to schedule a demo. That's sales@stonefly.com.
That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to having you for our next deep dive into critical information.